107.3 KFFM, another Wednesday and another chance to sit down and chat with Emily Jameson.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, lady. How have you been?
I'm doing great. Love the spring.
Yes.
Turning a corner from the snow.
Sunshine.
Yes.
If you would give everybody your title again and how they can find you on social media.
Yeah, thank you. I am a trauma-aware transformational life coach. You can find me at my website, EmilyJamesonCoaching.com, on Facebook, Emily Jameson Coaching, Instagram at the Emily Jameson, and I'm also on LinkedIn, Emily Jameson Coaching.
Constantly dropping gems. I do heart a lot of your content. I'd love for you to, a couple of different examples of how you can help people before we dive into today.
A couple of the things that I do, one of them is really helping my clients to be clear on what their talents are, their strength areas. So I am a certified Gallup strengths coach, and that's a thing that I really weave into everything that I do, because knowing who you are, having language around that, I talk about it as sort of like everybody has their own little operating system and we're swimming in our own sea. So we don't always know how to verbalize what sets us apart. And so identifying those things and then helping my clients to live and work and play from those points of talent and strength is one of the things that I do. And then another side of my business really has to do more with getting into the subconscious limiting beliefs, limiting decisions, those little things that embed themselves in our subconscious that we may not even know about. If you notice any times in your life that you've tried to point yourself towards a goal or make some sort of change, and maybe you have made that change, but then you've kind of fell off the wagon or you haven't really transformed, it's because something under the surface is running, usually a limiting belief. And that's what I work with all of my clients, as well as getting into that stuff, cleaning it out so that you can move forward with one foot on the gas instead of one on the gas, one on the brakes.
Providing you with the power that you didn't know was inside of you.
Yes.
And I have to say, I took that Gallup test and I loved it, because I feel like I've taken tests my entire life and they're always like, you like everything. And I'm like, no.
Exactly. Well, you should see yourself on the pages of that,
yes.
And I think that's what's really fun for me. It's really a positive psychology approach. And Dr. Don Clifton, when he established this, he started this research process back in 1946, asking the question, what is right with people? What if we studied what is right for people and looked for that? And so when we do this assessment, your top talents populate to the top, and it should look and sound familiar to you.
Yes, I was very impressed with it. So Emily is actually offering a chance to get a free consultation and a session with her as well.
Yep.
So all of these interviews are going to be over at kffm.com or keyw.com, and you can enter to win and just keep abreast of everything that's going on, because she's constantly going out and you're training other people and groups and businesses out there. So you just came back from a training today.
I did. I work with individuals and with teams, and I really love working with teams because we have jobs, we have careers, right? So it is great working on yourself, working on your strengths. But when you get the chance to be a part of a team that's focused on learning the talents of everybody on the team and elevating that, helping people be in roles that play to their strengths, you can just feel the environment of that group. It's different than other organizations where it's not strengths focused. If it's all about weakness fixing, then that's just focusing on the very bottom rather than looking at what's going well and how to make that better.
So if you're a boss out there and you're thinking, how
Give me a
can
call.
I? Yes, please. Emily Jameson is ready for you. All of it is to benefit everybody. Be the best that you possibly can be. And why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah. I have been thinking lately about what is my why? And it's a question that we all should ask ourselves from time to time. And yes, a big part of that is helping the people who come into my office make the changes that they want in their life. But an even bigger part of that for me is for the next generation, because I think now mental health care is becoming something we're all open to talking about. And especially Gen Z has really normalized that, which is super cool. 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, it was something you kept very private and you didn't talk about. But now we treat it as also part of our physical health, our spiritual, emotional, social stuff. And when you do work on yourself, you are then stopping it from being something that the trauma or whatever you encountered, when you consciously break those cycles, then you allow your children or the people that you live with around you to also experience a different type of quality of life. And that's what really motivates me.
That's key. That is so key. I've noticed there have been artists lately on the radio and they're singing about how I got you into therapy. I put all, to work on yourself. It is your responsibility to work on yourself. You cannot fix anybody else.
No.
You can assist.
Totally.
But if you're not even working on yourself, don't bother. Ew. And especially if you're just dating them, stop doing that. That is like, ew. Ew.
Right.
Everybody needs to look inward and figure out what your why is.
Yep.
Perfect.
Changing the world by changing ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
It seems so simple, but I think that you're definitely onto something. Everybody is changing. We're evolving. Things are going to be, and this next generation, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 10 years.
Yeah. So when we have the choice to do it intentionally and with purpose, why not?
Why not? Why not? Oh my gosh. So definitely on Wednesdays, you better tune in because it's all about the why. Oh, cool. So what are you hitting with?
I thought today we would talk a little bit about self-care, and popular buzzword, we hear about it all the time, but what does that actually look like in some more practical senses?
Yes.
So it doesn't look the same for everybody, which is interesting. And I think that's also, this is becoming a thing that we've talked a lot more about over the last couple years, especially since COVID happened. And one thing that's really interesting to point out is that there's these areas of well-being. So they include career well-being, which is liking what you do. And then there's social well-being, which is having friends and meaningful relationships in your life. There's physical well-being, having the energy to live your life and enjoy it. And there's financial well-being, having the money that you need and managing it well. And then there is community, so where you live. Of all of those, the human being is very responsive and resilient when they encounter difficulties in one of those areas. But when you encounter difficulties in all of them at one time, it can be very difficult. And I think that happened a lot in the pandemic. So 2 years ago, when the world shut down, suddenly people didn't know if they were going to have a job anymore. What about their health? They were disconnected from their community. Career, we may have had a lot of buckets filled by our jobs, and then that changed. And so there was a lot hit all at one time. And as a result of that, as we've navigated our way through that, and suddenly it has taken 2 years, these conversations have risen to the surface. So self-care is more than just like taking a spa day, because that may require you having an extra $300. If you go take a spa day,
You're so right about that. That's not a relaxing thing right now.
And you can't afford that, then you created more stress in your life, and the financial well-being, that's not aligned. And now your generative effects of your spa day are negated because it was really outside of your budget. So self-care is a lot more practical, and also like wine and bubble bath isn't everybody's cup of tea. So what does that actually look like?
Okay.
First of all, it is personal, so it's not just the same for everybody, but think about the things that give you a little bit of a lift. Or as I also like to invite people to do is think about what you like to do when you were 8 years old. Oh. I was a real bookworm, and I still love reading novels as a way of turning off from the rest of my day and giving myself a little bit of time.
Yes.
For other people, like it could be that they loved dance or sports, getting physical activity. So those are all things that are really important pieces of self-care. And also why self-care is important is because it keeps you from getting too far gone into the stage of burnout. So self-care is also really connected to boundaries. And I think that's a little interesting because we don't think of that typically, but having a plan for self-care means things like getting enough sleep, watching what you're eating, trying to eat healthy.
No, Emily.
I know, it's so shocking. Managing your money, like these parts of this, like making sure that you connect with people and have relationships that are meaningful for you. So what does that look like? Maybe taking time in a week to call a friend, but recognizing that when I do those things, that fills my cup. And when you're doing that and having that be part of your self-care strategy, then that's how you build in those buffers to keep yourself from going, if things are difficult at work or in any one of those areas of well-being. When we're making sure that we're mindful about our self-care, then it doesn't devolve into, I've neglected all these parts of what it means to take care of myself. And now I'm at this stage of burnout and I'm completely fatigued and I'm checked out and I'm exhausted and I'm not really well.
So how do you start doing these? Do you just make a list? list?
Well, kind of. So I think that some of them are things like looking at those, those 5 areas. So one would be like thinking about the work that you do. Do you like what you're doing? Is it a good fit for you, for your talents? A question that I like to ask people is what brought you to the job, but what keeps you there? If there's components of your job that may need to change, like you might need to do a little bit of an assessment, but then thinking about the fact that we're with people, we're at work really more than we're at, with our families.
Yeah.
You don't want work to be a place that's completely depleting. So you need to still think about ways to build self-care into that. So that's probably having boundaries. And that's a thing that I talk a lot about with groups, which is self-care is both individual and organizational. And you want to feel like you're allowed to clock off when you're clocking off. And that time that you have outside of work should be time where you're also replenishing, taking care of yourself, so that when you go back to work, you're at work fully. What happened, and I think we're in a culture where those areas have gotten a little bit gray. A lot gray, we'll be honest. So when you find yourself doing work during the time you should be with your family, that's a problem. And also when you're at work, make sure to take your breaks. Take your lunch break. Like do those things because those are meant to be there for you. And hopefully you work in an environment where your boss wants you to take a vacation and take it, because that's important for you to turn off from work and then turn on to the time that you are away from work and doing these other things. So having fun, whatever having fun looks like for you, that's really important to do. And that's self-care. Same as like listening to your body. Mm-hmm. So do you need to have a nap today? Do you need to go on a walk? Like, do you need to eat salad? Yeah. The things that tuning into our bodies and doing those things as self-care. Getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, depending on what you need. 6 to 8, 7 to 9.
Okay.
I think 6 is a little more of a myth. Yeah. But having a regular sleep schedule, tracking your finances, these sound like kind of boring adulting things, but they actually are steps of self-care.
Stress relievers
when you're doing them regularly.
Yeah. If you're not watching your finances and just kind of going balls to the wall until you have no money, that's stressful because you're like on the cliff all the time, and you've gotten addicted to the unknown, and that's a form of stress for sure.
A huge one that is kind of recognized for the value is actually practicing gratitude. And here's why I love this as a coach and in the type of work that I do is because when you are practicing gratitude, so we have 2 directions we can point. One is towards wall. Towards is like in the direction of all the things that I want. Away wall is, I don't have enough of this, and I don't have this, and this is a problem, and I'm a victim, blah, blah, blah. The more you look at the away wall, you spiral down.
Yes.
When you have a gratitude practice, you automatically turn towards wall. So even in your darkest times, and if you are experiencing some difficulties or some depression, developing a gratitude practice can change a lot because it forces you to scan and search for something to be grateful for. And at one very low point in my life, I tried to do this. And even though I couldn't see the sun, I lived in Portland at the time, I knew it was shining somewhere. Right. And so that was a thing for me where I was like, I will be grateful today that the sun is shining somewhere, even though I can't see it. But it helped me. It was a dark time. Yeah. But getting into that mindset, I think it did help me to move out into a space that was much more healthy.
I agree. Those affirmations that I'm trying to do, making a habit to do something every single day that is super positive and is for you to build yourself up. Oh my gosh. You'll be amazed. And it's fun to like look back at, like how hard it was in the beginning. And now you're like, boo, 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 boo. And not every day is going to be sunshine, but that's a great thing that it is shining somewhere.
And self-care can look like compassion for yourself on the really hard days when maybe you just got out of bed, but you took a shower too, and you're caring for your body. Like, sometimes we can do a lot, sometimes we can do a little, but I think understanding that this is a daily practice.
Yeah. Breaking up the more work I do that shows that how amazing I am, people are just going to take advantage of you until you break. And then they're going to be like, we were waiting to see how long it's like amazing. It's amazing some of the stuff that comes out of people's mouths.
I think that at the core of it, self-care is saying to yourself, I matter, I'm important.
Yes.
And it's not abdicating responsibility of that to somebody else. It's taking that on your own self. So moving into responsibility in a way that's saying that old adage that you're in an airplane and you have to get your air mask before you put it on someone else. If we didn't see this modeled for us when we were young, it can be difficult called to make these changes in our life, but recognizing that no one's going to take care of you better than you take care of yourself.
It's true. And you continue to not listen to those little voices. It comes out in really strange ways, and you'll not know why you feel the way that you feel. And anytime that you start going like, oh, this person, pull it back.
Yeah.
Pull it back and remind yourself how amazing you are. Because you're right. Nobody's going to take care of you like yourself. You want it, but it's like a love language. Everybody's got different ways that they show love and how you want to receive love. And you're the only person that can answer those questions for yourself.
Yep. So permission granted today to get yourself a self-care practice, and don't feel bad about it. It's critical.
I love it. Make your list right now. Enter for a session with Emily. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.